Speaking of that, yesterday, I almost had one of the girls I used to in class.
Oh, yeah.
She has 2 first names.
Yeah, I've done come check that out, what you're saying, that's pretty cool. You know, I don't get much of this, it's like,
I'm not sure which one that's like. There's so many things.
so, I mean, I go back to, and I used to get along real good.
It works out good in that when half the time we show up. We're supposed to play.
I remember one time,
Most
she's
better.
been
Feel free to do whatever you want to do.
Different, that's right. Yeah, we like.
and it
Oh,
was,
tonight? Oh, really?
and you know where, used to be,
So you guys also know? Team?
We might have 7 kids, we'll see. It seems like.
Go with the chocolate. Hot chocolate days, damn it. No, God, I'm telling you.
We've got in the shop, all the guys just keep passing it around. So if you're sick, stop coming to work, you're just getting everybody else sick. We can't afford to lose 10 guys. Especially with this going on, you know. Yeah, it's one of the sisters, they strap it, and kids, and kids are like up there. Yeah, right.
it's just. We're gonna stay attention to something.
It's just like, I'm gonna get the kids open. It's okay. And then they get here, and they're so, you know, the school stories. Yeah. They were sick before you guys were sick.
That's why we're gonna be a Tom, man, I'm telling you, Bartle. Learn how to protect yourself. Yeah, and talk too. And be ready for the occasion. Thanks so much, Jake. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Did you do my second fridge first?
Yeah, what's up with that? I ain't got my site now.
Oh my gosh, that was the day.
Yeah.
Way to drop the ball, Ethan.
I'm a failure, I'm not here, I'm gonna be with you.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that on Ethan, he asked if I were on the street, and he
I let everyone down.
She goes, Ethan's not doing well, that's when he's all frazzled. He goes, the demo contractor is delivering something, and he doesn't know. Like your last.
Well, I tried to do it myself, but I figured I would.
Nobody.
You guys are talking to them about it?
Yes, they know we're gonna send it to them and they want it back on Wednesday. Otherwise, we're getting rid of whatever we want.
I get off again.
I knew exactly what it was, as soon as I heard, I was like, I'll be right down. Yeah.
What are you doing?
It was told just to go there, they couldn't make the time.
I'm messing up your whole setup.
Tearing up the road. That's not gonna happen on my watch.
Nothing is going to work.
That's the last thing. We're getting DPW. We did know.
Are you gonna be doing a presentation?
4 hours crossing.
Mike is.
And they basically said, well, we're gonna go out, we're gonna buy.
It was,
Like 800 sheets of plywood.
You
Going in the
press
streets,
the
so we don't tear it
little
straight.
white,
We want to
projector.
put it anyway.
Yeah.
So
I've
people
turned
like-
it on, so we're
They had
recording right
outdoor
now.
visitations
For recording?
To work inside.
I kept our house site.
By the time we get all the paperwork.
It's actually a demo thing, you know, they do
You don't go out and buy the sheets of plywood, it has the little gate that has a jib.
Yeah, they could have gotten on a business sheet, didn't have it.
Kind of like I said, it's so big that you
Well,
can't-
we're not, we're not touching market, she's asked if you turn it on. And it was, no one was answering another phone.
Well, I guess it's a fault door. Yeah, they're gonna smash it here. Yeah, he said they're taking the whole building down, big wall, and it's the last thing that they smash it. But I'm sure they're gonna do this meter, and then we get it out of the right column. Just smash the safe.
They didn't say that.
And then we'll pick up the next.
If I just said I.
Oh,
This is a hospital.
I can't remember last show we had. Robin was on doing this thing.
Tony Lindsay, I think, huh?
This is what we ever run in these meetings before.
Saudi runs.
Just read it.
Beth doesn't read, I read.
That's essentially it. Reports from counselors, they like, Mr. Miller, Sylvia's not here. That's it.
Yeah.
From the community development
Sorry about
office.
I guess you're running the meeting, Counselor, yeah.
Yeah, see how that goes. So this is the Governance Strategy and City Operations Committee. We'll start the meeting. Do I do the roll call?
But Beth does
Beth
it.
does the roll call? Can we give
Counselor
it-
Barville? Counselor DeDominicis?
Here.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Kelly?
Here.
Counselor Gibbs? Counselor McFarland?
I'm here, but I might leave.
Counselor Moore? Counselor Moore? That's it.
All right.
It's just a little sound.
So we, reports from the department representatives. Do we have any, we're going to give an,
I did want to provide the council, are other members coming, or?
They are, they're just
I think
on
they're-
the way down the hall somewhere.
I did want to present the council with the plans for improvements for the relocated farmers market down on the MLD site.
okay?
Mike Kuhn from ADA is here, so if you guys would like to do that now, we can jump right into
Yeah,
it.
let's do that.
Okay.
How about we drag these counselors in though, so they have the benefit of that? Are they coming?
Slowly coming.
Yes, they are now.
Magic right arm.
We're gonna get an update on the farmer's market, the move.
Exciting.
Yeah, all right.
Pass those down.
Sure, thank you.
Like that for a little bit.
All right, so these are the updated plans for the proposed improvements to the new location for the Plattsburgh Farmers Market down on the former MLD site. As you all know, demolition of the buildings on site is ongoing. The one large building that is not being demolished is going to be repurposed into a new destination down by the waterfront, also to house the operations of the Farmers and Crafters Market during their operating season between May and October. So we've met with a number of different groups on this. ADA is the firm that we brought on to handle the design and architectural work. This is their current site plan, and the other sheet is a up-to-date rendering of the building and also a proposed floor plan with the market stalls denoted in red dashed. So I will turn this over to Mike Kuhn from ADA, who can speak to any of the specifics, but I'll bring up the site plan on the projector just so everybody can see what we're talking about.
Thanks.
There's staples on top of it.
Good evening, I'm Mike Kuhn with AEDA. As Matt presented to you, this is the current site plan with the attached rendering and floor plan. We are going to be going in front of the planning board later this month. I believe Matt can maybe better describe it, but as an advisory comment period with the planning board to gain their feedback as we prepare the bid documents. Where we stand currently, we're working on the architectural documents to go along with the bid set, which the site plan in front of you is generally the level of detail we'll go to for bid improvements. It's highly limited in terms of site changes at this time. It's really geared around parking for the public and parking for vendors, and then some minor improvements around the former PMLD building that will be renovated. The architectural and construction work will include a canopy on the front of the existing building which will be similar in size and nature to the current farmer's market structure. So there will be a combination of vendors to be outside under the canopy and then also within the existing structure that'll be renovated. The improvements generally, the canopy is the largest of the improvements, and then upgrades to the existing building will generally be lighting, power receptacles, and securing some deficiencies with the current building, some wall structural improvements, some window replacements, that sort of thing. So that's pretty much what we've been working on. We anticipate in roughly about 2 weeks, we'll have the formal documents ready for Matt's office to review before going to bid, and then of course the comments from the planning board that we obtain later this month. So we're looking at being ready in about 2 weeks.
And for the farmer's market schedule, their opening date for the season is May 9th, Julie?
Yes.
So what we are building into the bid documents for anyone interested in doing this work is that they need to have everything completed no later than May 1st, to give the market at least a week to move in and get themselves situated before opening day.
Now, are you adding bathrooms in?
So,
Go ahead, Mike.
so the bid project will include an addition with restrooms. The bid documents will be set up such that it's gonna be an alternate. It's a high-ticket item, so to speak, so it's likely not within budget, but we figure it's best to include it in the bid documents. Then the Farmers Market Bureau and the city will have an idea of what that will cost in the future, should they choose to build the restrooms. And I believe the Community Development Office has looked into getting a temporary restroom structure for the summer. So we'll provide water and sewer connection through coordinating with the Department of Public Works. And then the temporary restroom structure could serve for the summer.
And so that little annex to the left, on the back left, will that be built, because I see that's where the bathrooms are gonna go here on the
Correct.
plan. Will that be built, or will that, because I see there's an area behind that, and then will it just be expanded if and when bathrooms are built?
So this structure would be the bathroom addition. It currently does not exist. So that would be the structure. If the bids come in and they're favorable and it's within the budget, they can proceed with it now. If not, it wouldn't be constructed, but we would have the cost of it
So
for
that,
planning.
so
in
that's the
future.
alternate then?
Correct.
And are there refrigeration units or anything like that in this building?
But there will be plenty of power outlets for any of the vendors to use.
And my last question was ventilation. I know the biggest difference between this building and the current farmer's market building when I go into it. The current farmer's market building has a very high ceiling, and I see they have like these very big, I don't know how good they are, ventilation units. And when I went and looked at, got the tour from Mr. Miller and Ethan of the new farmer's market building, the biggest difference was that it's got a much lower ceiling. Is what kind of ventilation is going in? And is that an issue?
We had discussed a few options for improvements in terms of the ventilation. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we settled on, for budgetary reasons, we have the overhead doors on both ends of the building that'll be open. And then I don't believe we discussed ceiling fans. I don't believe.
Yes, we did.
Are we sticking with them? Okay.
Yeah.
So in addition to the overhead door openings, we've discussed ceiling fans along the structure.
Perfect, and there's side doors as well, I think, right?
There's one overhead door looking out the front of the building and one to be installed on the western side of the building, looking out over the former MLB site.
And this building, when completed, is it gonna be insulated so that they're perhaps like of cold weather or of Four Seasons farmer's market?
Not at this time, but it's all an exposed shell on the inside. Should in the future it be desired, then it could be insulated.
Thanks. Any other questions, farmer's market?
Just notice we have a member of farmer's market here. I would love to hear her comments if she has.
Any,
I've been going over this with Matt since the beginning, and I've met many times, and, I mean, the budget was the way it was, and we wangled and finagled and decided to take some of this away and add some of that, and we managed to come up with a very, very acceptable plan for the building. It's-
And of course, a lot is still dependent upon the bids that we get in.
Now, size-wise, how does this compare to the current or the former
The
farm?
inside is bigger. In fact, when they spaced it out, when I saw that they actually did the boot size in there, the boot side's bigger, and I'm gonna get more people inside, so I'm really stoked about that. Honestly, I didn't even pay attention to the outside, simply because that's workable no matter what. Because of the way it is, the way the building's long outside, our present building, our people can't pull up to it,
Yeah.
except for one side. This one, they'll be able to pull up both sides. With that being said, they don't have to be entirely in there. Like if you've been down to Keene, a lot of times they'll add like a tent or an overhang, so that way their stalls can be even wider and longer. So it's totally adjustable outside. I foresee no problems at all.
And you see
With
people setting up tents like on the outside, on the side of the pavilion?
Looks pretty cool, actually. It makes their booth much longer in depth. It just looks really good like that.
And is
And
the,
then obviously they'll have, I'll have tented vendors beyond the overhang, like now. You know how I have them way out in the parking lot. We'll have some of those as well.
now, has the farmer's market considered, or has any other vendors reached out to the farmer's market as far as expanding the amount of vendors in the farmer's market?
Oh my God, I have a folder about this thing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of duplicates, so I'm running into a lot of food. People don't wanna do produce. We don't have farmers anymore. It's really, really sad. People don't wanna farm. Agriculture is just like sadly going in the tubes.
Well, I remember there was some friction between farmers that wanted to do CSAs and the farmers market didn't want CSAs. Is the farmers market rethinking their?
What's a CSA?
Wow, I don't know what it stands for.
Community supported agriculture.
Nothing
Yeah, it's
to
like-
it.
Is,
Nothing.
like, has that sort of friction been alleviated, and has there been talk of bringing in those farmers that used to do that wanted to do CSA?
Parents has one of those.
We only had one other person that wanted to do a CSA. It's not that we object to it, it just makes it rough. You've got a produce person who does CSAs. CSAs are, basically, they buy a yearly subscription to buying fruits and vegetables from a specific vendor. With that being said, people go and they pick up what is prepackaged for that particular week or month. We could have that, but then the people are gonna go in, they're going to buy the produce from that specific vendor and leave. It's a common occurrence, it's documented, they come in, they get it, they pick it up, and they leave. Where does that leave all the other vendors? Where does that leave all the other produce people? Not in a good state. It's not that we're against it, we're just trying to be fair to everyone. Will it be opened up to CSAs? The one vendor that wanted to come in there to do CSAs is there, and they're doing really well without that. We kind of juggle things a little, I'll be honest, and they do these card things. Instead of people coming to pick up the produce, they use their card that they get from the vendor, and they can get the produce they want. That way, do you see what I'm saying? We kind of met them halfway. So that way it doesn't look obvious, and it doesn't look like they're coming, getting their stuff and leaving. And if they don't see what they want there, then chances are the vendor that does it, they're really awesome people. And they say, why don't you go and see so-and-so, or maybe so-and-so has it. So by meeting them halfway, they're meeting us.
Okay, but it does seem like the initial question that you are maybe seeing more demand or maybe an increase in the amount of vendors in this new location?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, we just lost our oldest vendor that was there. He was there for 10 years. It was, he unexpectedly passed away, and
Sorry to hear that.
so he was our primary guy, and so I've had to replace him. But, we have people that are interested, so, I've got a good variety. I actually have a line on a dairy person that I'm very excited about that, so. It's gonna, I'm hoping to get at least 65 vendors in. Right now I have 51.
Great.
No, perfect.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
And just a few other small notes on this, so the council knows exactly what's included here. The two highlighted yellow lines that you see on the bottom right-hand corner of the site map, those are proposed connections to the other parking lots that are certainly warranted, but we don't feel we can get done with the amount of funding that we have for this project. So that will certainly be part of the discussion of the Harborside Master Plan that we're putting together, but for the time being, we're just putting them as future improvements to be considered at a later time.
Okay.
And also the current perimeter fence around the MLB building, that is going to be removed once demolition of the former MLB buildings are complete. It's still a question of whether our current contractor for the demolition is going to do that, or if that's going to be done by the contractor for the farmer's market improvements, but that is something that we hope to accomplish with this project.
Great.
And Matt, these orange lines that are adding in parking, how many parking spots is this? Yeah, that number.
I think it's, what, 121, Mike?
Yes, so we've been able to fit just on the existing paved areas, 121 spaces. And we've also added near to the farmer's market, adjacent to the potential bathroom addition, handicap accessible parking spaces, which is, the number of 5 is prorated off of the total number of parking spaces, so it would meet ADA accessibility guidelines for accessible parking spaces.
So that's gonna increase the total number of parking down at Harborside to over 500 parking spaces.
That's correct.
And now these buildings that are marked in the green, obviously those are being, with the green hashing, those are being demolished under the Restore New York grant. What's going to be where those buildings are now? Are they just gonna be empty green spaces? Are they gonna be empty asphalt spaces?
The current plan is to seed them with grass once the weather gets a little nicer, and have them serve as open green space.
Perfect.
Yeah, recreation areas for folks who are down there.
Great.
Yep.
Great.
I
Thank
have
you.
a question about the yellow walkways. Isn't it possible now to walk from the parking lot to this new location?
Yeah, there's no, other than the fence that is coming down, there are no physical encumbrances, so somebody could park. This might serve as overflow parking. It's certainly not the first option, but people can park over in the Harborside parking lot, simply walk down the path and right across the grassy area to the new site.
So the idea might be someday to
pave it.
add a paved walkway.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. But there's nothing to keep you from walking there now, right?
Other than that fence, no, there's nothing.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for the updates. So we have 10 items on the agenda to move forward. We have to do this one at a time. Can we do these and discuss all at once? I'm not sure what the process is here for this.
You can call for a motion to have them all moved, and then we can have discussion on the individual items. It's probably the best way to do it, Paul.
All right, then I call for a motion to waive the reading and move all of these forward for discussion and consideration.
So moved.
You have to second.
I have the second. Oh, that's right. Does I second that as well?
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
So, is there anything that the council would like to
Did you
just?
know there's a representative of Sauer Neck Power Partners, who's here that can speak to item number 9?
Okay.
If there's no questions, then you can let him go.
What? Yeah, I'd like to.
So this is, he doesn't necessarily have to speak, just this was a request to install some stop signs for safety purposes. I guess they have tractor trailers that pull onto their site. Their property is located in the town of Plattsburgh, but it's accessed by Weed Street, which is a city-owned street. And because of the site distances, apparently there's an inability for the tractors to stop because of the 25-foot distance where the signs were currently located. So they requested to be able to place some stop signs about 100 feet from their gate to allow sufficient time, but that would be on city property. So using kind of a license agreement template, I put together a document which would authorize SPP to purchase, install, and maintain 2 stop signs on, that 100-foot setback area. And, so long as they were responsible for the whole process and identifying the city, it was an appropriate request. So if there's any other questions, there's a representative here that can address that as well.
So it would be Saranac Power Partners installing the stop signs? And they would just be, is it at an intersection or it's just in the middle of
That's
the
a dead end
street?
street.
Oh, yeah.
So you go to the end and the gate to Saranac Power Partners is there. You've got a lot of cars that are driving up through and not realizing that there's a gate there, and in slip conditions or slamming on the brakes and sliding into the gate.
We've had one vehicle accident at that gate, and then one is unacceptable. So the thought is to install a stop sign to make vehicles approaching our call box and our front gate stop, slow down, and creep to the gate to eliminate any risk in the future.
But this stop sign will be north of Boynton Avenue, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of more stop signs, so sounds great to me.
Quick question for John about the grants, if I could.
Sure.
Yeah, just the New York State ESD grant, for item number 1, the request project appropriation to implement the revised project improvements. Clean water I'm familiar with, and the WIA 0% financing. That's for the hardship financing. Did we
Correct.
qualify for that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the, just curious, what's the ESD grant?
That came through, I think that came through the CFA, it's the Empire State Development.
Yep. Do you
So
remember what
they
the funding was?
provided $758,000.
Okay.
It's a reimbursement type program, so we gotta finish the work first. And I think the main rationale is because a component of this project includes odor control,
Okay.
which will help the full use and development of the waterfront.
Perfect. Thank you.
So,
For the connection.
of the 720,000, how much of that is paid for by the Clean Water and New York State ESD grant?
If that's the final project number, they'll pay 25%, so that becomes $1.68 million in grant. 758,000 from ESD, which leaves a balance of $4,282,000, which would then be at the 0% financing, which turns into a bond payment of like $143,000 a year.
And what about maintenance for these improvements in the future?
That's typically built into our operation and maintenance budget.
How much would that increase your operation and maintenance budget, though?
It's actually, I wouldn't expect it to increase it initially, probably decrease it, because we're spending money on maintenance of these old belt filter presses and old steel and all that. So actually, that's a good question. Probably in position to entertain some decreases during next year's budgeting process.
But but like 10 years out, what?
Be the same, yeah. I mean, we're taking out, or maybe even a little less. We're taking out 4 belt filter presses. We're putting in 2 new ones. The 2 new ones are more modern generation, so they actually have the same capacity as the 4 old ones. So we'll only be maintaining 2 belt filter presses going into the future instead of the 4 that we're doing now. So right now, on these 30-some-year-old belt filter presses, I mean, we might spend $20,000 a year. It's really a small amount of our overall budget.
Now you said if it costs, is that not the price of what? That's a
So
maximum level.
It's what the appropriation's going to take the capital project to now. So, let's see here. To date, we're if we award the 3 contracts tonight, we're probably going to be have a total a total commitment to spend somewhere close to $6 million. So there's still some money in this capital project, this $6.792 million, that is not encumbered or expected necessarily to be spent unless we decide to do additional work and we run into change orders and things like that.
And what exactly is this $6 million purchasing? I know you said belt. Or
2 new belt filter presses, which is dewatering equipment. It takes the liquid sludge and squeezes the water out of it so we can put it in a dump trailer and take it to a landfill or to some kind of processing facility. And we're also upgrading our primary clarifiers, which are the first concrete tanks that the wastewater gets pumped into. Those are from the early 70s, significant concrete deterioration. There's a fair amount of fixed steel throughout the tanks for overflow weirs and supports. That's getting repaired. But then there's a bunch of mechanical equipment in the center of the concrete tank that sits on a steel pedestal, which has gearboxes and rotating assemblies to move the sludge around. So it's upgraded to primary clarifiers and replacement of the belt filter presses.
So are these more like necessary replacements, or is this to increase capacity?
It's not to increase capacity, it's to fix or replace what's there that's either deteriorated or is getting ready to fail.
Okay.
The ESD grant, is that percentage based as well? So if we spend less, we're getting the percentages, or is that 758,000?
It is percentage based,
Okay.
but the amount of money that we're most likely going to expend is going to exceed what
they're going to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, we have to deduct the ESD grant from the maximum WIA grant that we get.
Right. Yep.
And then do some calculations. But there's other components to the WIA work,
Yep.
that odor control, covering tanks, architectural upgrades. So we're going to eat through that money eventually. So, but the ESD is going to offset that initially.
Now, John, you said part of this was odor control?
No, part of the future WIA work that we're going to be doing will be odor control upgrades and covering one of the primary clarifiers and some of the influent channels. So we got, for WIA, we got almost $5 million in grant money and up to $20 million in this 0% interest hardship financing. This is the first phase of the WIA improvements, the dewatering upgrades and the primary clarifier rehabilitation. There's future phases that are coming, some noise reduction, but the odor control upgrades, covering of tanks, and then the architectural upgrades. That's all being funded from the WIA grant and the 0% interest loans. And most of that falls under what we're calling mitigation. There's also a capital project resolution on there to increase the mitigation project from $200,000 to $1 million. We're in the process of designing those odor control upgrades, the cover upgrades, relocation to the nutrient feed building, and new chemical building. So that's like phase 2 and phase 3 that's coming down the road. So we're only in design on that now. The dewatering and the primary clarifiers are moving into construction. So that's more advanced.
And that will happen like this year?
The construction?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna hit the ground running because it's probably close to a year's worth of work, and there's a deadline on the ESD grant program that's making the schedule kind of tight.
Now, moving on to item number 2, which you already talked about a little bit, of that $800,000 increase, how much of that is grant funded and how much of that is to the zero?
25% of it is WIA grant funded, and the other 75% will be through the 0% interest loan.
And so all right, and are these 2 projects part of that whole like $19 million possible?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will the money come from IIC charges?
No, the IICs right now are just limited to the water fund. So like the water tanks and the dams we do with IICs.
Oh, okay.
On the sewer side, we've had a very sizable reserve fund, so we've been spending reserve money when we've done major wastewater or sewer upgrades.
Okay.
In the case here, as far as IICs, we're always looking at whether we need one on the sewer side, but we had a financial report from Rich this morning, and the sewer fund looks very healthy, both from the perspective of how much cash we have in the reserves and how much revenue we have over and above actual expenditures.
So the $143,000 capital payment will come from?
That's, the way it stands now, it's going to come from the excess revenue that we have. So we're not going to need to do an IIC. So right now, the way the sewer fund is, we're bringing in more money than we're actually spending.
Yes.
So once that $143,000 a year bond payment materializes in a year, 2 years, or whatever, we've already got that cash flow built into the operating fund.
Is that the reason to treat it as a capital project, just to maintain cash flow?
Yeah,
It
well,
sounds
it'll-
like you could pay cash for it if you.
We could use the reserve money to pay for some of this, but we've got the grant
0%.
and the 0% interest, so.
Yeah, okay.
So that's great for us to use the 0% interest loan for whatever we're spending money on. Hold on to our cash so that, I don't know, maybe 15 years from now, there's no more 0% interest. The borrowing rate may be 6% now. We're sitting on all this cash and we're gonna be in really good position.
You know, John, the 143,000, that's just what you see as for project number 1. What would I think, right?
Correct.
What
For
would it
the,
be for all of 1 through 5?
for the second capital project, the one that's going from $200,000 to $800,000,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's 25% of that's WIA grant. So the balance, 750,000, is 0% interest loans. So over 30 years, that's $25,000 a year.
3, 4, and 5 are the contract.
Those are the contracts, yeah. Okay.
All right, so yeah, that's something we should discuss real quick, is on the dewatering upgrades, because of the size of the project, we had to break it into 3 prime contracts, an electrical, an HVAC, and a general. So that's why you're seeing 3 contracts here. We couldn't do it as just one.
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you, sir.
Also, I think it's worth noting that you've moved a lot of these projects up primarily to make sure that for odor control and looking at the things that will make the biggest difference in mitigating odor control.
Correct.
Knowing that the farmer's market is relocating.
And does any of this, what about noise pollution or mitigation, rather?
Yeah, the noise that needs to be mitigated, it's very inexpensive to do, so it's just kind of buried as a miscellaneous cost.
Okay.
Which
For now.
some of them you've already done, he's already reported to you, you've skunk worked your own
Yeah,
baffles around.
we
some major
did
odors.
develop an enclosure for one of the aerators. We have 6 aerators down there that basically make the noise. We built a prototype enclosure for, I don't know, maybe $1,000. So we anticipate building 5 more of those. Somewhere down the road, though, we're probably gonna switch away from these surface aerators, which are really loud and thrash the water around, to what's called fine bubble diffusion. That uses compressed air, but it's below the water surface, so there's basically no noise at all involved with it. So that'll kind of self-rectify later on. I just came back from a conference Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and I learned from EFC that the WIA grants, at least for the near future, instead of there being a $5 million limit every 5 years on the wastewater and a $3 million limit every 5 years on the water, it's now every year.
That's awesome.
It's probably not going to do a lot on the wastewater side, but on the drinking water side, I'm hoping it's going to open up $3 million every year for the next 3 or 4 years for us. So,
Great.
yeah, that was good news.
That is
Could
good
you
news.
update the council on the water side as well, some of the projects you've been working on?
The big one on the water side's the pursuit of groundwater to either supplement or replace some of the surface water dams. There's 2 big reports on the drinking water side on Mead Dam. Was a seismic analysis, what kind of improvements we need to do there to make sure we're meeting present-day seismic requirements. The draft I've seen so far, it looks like those improvements are pretty expensive, especially in comparison to groundwater wells. So we're going to be doing an analysis of, okay, what's it going to cost to improve the dam and have the dam water, the reservoir water, versus what it's going to cost to drill wells. We've done some test wells. They look very promising. Sometime in the next 2 or 3 months, you'll be seeing a recommendation from me to start to turn at least one of those test wells into a full production well, to see what kind of yield we can actually sustain from it. So,
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
We're sort of running a little over here, so there's,
I think there's a question on item 10. And want to know if you needed any more information on it. It kind of came up in an email, something Beth has been working on trying to clarify with civil service this week. And if you need to go into an executive session, you're welcome to ask any questions.
No, I don't need to ask questions. I initially started the email chain about the document that Beth emailed us and explained that, the request had to come 3 days before the meeting, which you did get, but you couldn't really copy the whole email and put it in with the document, so, I don't have any questions about it. If anybody else
No,
does.
I'm fine as well.
Yeah.
So,
So you did receive the request, you just couldn't copy the whole request and send it to us, so, yeah. So just for clarity and so that the public knows, we did follow the proper procedure and the time frame that's stipulated in the document.
awesome. No other discussion? I think we can move these forward.
Who adjourned?
Roll call on these, right, to move them?
We already did that.
No, we
We just old business and new business.
we just, approved them for discussion, then we
You
didn't do.
approve moving them all, is what you said, I thought.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Good, then we're set.
Well,
So,
it was after that.
Old business, I don't think there's anything that we have. New business, anyone wants to discuss? Then move to adjourn the ordinance committee?
Second?
Councilor Dominicus,
Yes?
Mayor Reed,
Yes.
Thank you.
Meeting's adjourned then. I'd like to begin the work session for the Common Council tonight. For this is additional time to talk about in length any items on the agenda tonight, or any other issues that may concern you. I think most of the items we've already just finished discussing.
The bass tournament, that's another one other than the one we approved one already, right?
there's about 7 or 8.
Seven.
There's two organizations that do tournaments here. So I think you already approved the
What is it,
series
live?
of tournaments from one group.
What was that?
They're all different. We're gonna get like 6 or 8 contracts to approve for
Okay.
2020 year. These are just 2.
Any further questions on that? We can complete our reports at this time. You've got your usual package of reports, and we also had our regular department head meeting today and talked about trying to put as many of these reports as we can into open gaps. We're making progress on that as well. For more detailed committee reports, let's begin with governance strategy. Whoops, bring it up. Yep. Governance strategy and city operations. Councilor D. Dominicus, can you summarize?
Sure. The meeting that we just had, went over, the plans for the farmer's market, some initial, timelines as far as when it's going out to bid and completion, and then discussed, also, some of the grants and, projects related to the, dewatering improvements, and some of the, on both the sewer side and then some projects on the water side.
And those recommendations are
Are all in
incorporated
the-
into the council meeting for today.
Yes.
City infrastructure, Councilor Moore.
Yeah, I had one item. The Infrastructure Committee is, as I stated last week, is recommending Plan 5A for Cogan Avenue. After speaking with some of the councilors and listening to all the public input, we are gonna proceed with that, with Plan 5A. And I wanna thank the people who came and gave us input.
Yes.
I'd like to thank Public Works for all the innovative solutions they came up with to give everyone more options, and especially Councilor Gibbs, who went out and did a lot of field work. So, thank you.
Yeah, and just, I wasn't able to be here last week, as you all know, my son was ill. So when we got the feedback here and we received another plan and we had our council meeting, I emailed the people who live in my ward, the ones that did contact me by email, I turned around and emailed them back, and I gave them the link to where they could find the plan on the website, and then I ended up getting other people that I had visited, they emailed me, and I got more phone calls, so this was kind of like an ongoing process over the course of about another week. And the feedback I received was positive, and even some of the people that I had originally spoken to who didn't want sidewalks were comfortable with this. So I'm satisfied with the feedback, and it looks like we do have a consensus among the council, and yeah, I think we're ready, so.
And I'm very glad that we're getting to this project. It's been a long time in coming. There's some really important repairs that are gonna be made there, and it's gonna be a big improvement to the
Yeah.
street.
I still like the other one better.
You would, Patrick.
That's all I had down there.
Any further comments? Finance and budget, Councilor Kelly?
I too attended the monthly department head meeting this morning and witnessed Mr. Marks give us an almost year-end results, and very, very promising. We are way ahead of budget on our fund balance at the end of this year, so that is some really,
That's
really
fantastic.
happy news. Of course, you always wonder, well, how come we didn't make our plan? But in this case, we didn't make our plan in a good way, because we exceeded our expectations. So it comes down to just, as you might expect, reduced spending, increased revenue, and then a charge we took. Some of you may recall, we set aside some monies a long time ago for anticipated salary increases for some of our employees and back pay per union contract. So some of that paid off for us, and we'll talk about it more during the finance committee meeting. But great year. I just, every year I say this, I couldn't be happier, but again this year I couldn't be happier. So can't wait to share all the news with you.
Thank you. Your committee meeting is what, 2 weeks' time?
Two
I'm sure
weeks.
you'll pretty much finalize numbers for 2019, which we can share with everybody. We
Yes.
did send around the packet that Mr. Marks has prepared to everybody. Public safety, Councilor Gibbs?
So we had another meeting this week as we continue to meet within our committee to talk about budget and staffing, and I think we're making some really good headway with everything we're trying to accomplish, and that's all.
Public library, Councilor DeDominicis?
Nothing really to report. I attended the first meeting the other day. It was really just good to get my foundation underneath me and whatnot. So nothing really to report at this time.
And MLD Board President, Councilor McFarland?
Oh, we had our meeting last week. We underwrote some losses, or nothing really much else to discuss. He did lay out that there's going to be a couple more level 2 charging stations installed this year. Other than that, no updates.
Any other reports anybody would like to give at this time? Any other discussion you'd like to have at this time? Seeing none, we could then adjourn for 15 minutes and resume at 5:30.
I don't want to get sick. So
Oh, no, that's fine. Oh,
the
welcome.
open government, I mean, that's what I'm looking for.
Mhm.
I realize you do everything so well. That this comes from strength to me. You guys do this down the road to all this stuff. It's very good. And I appreciate that. Because it is, it's on our house, it's our house. You can never go wrong. Thank you very much for your efforts.
Well, thank you.
I said that last week.
I appreciate your feedback.
Quick question. When you guys are safe, I was a little frustrated that you're up with those stop signs went up because I've been requesting a crosswalk right by your house almost to the field house. After I've been at the field house, I'm healthy, I like to walk. I'm taking my life away on the crosswalk. There's no place to cross. It's a long, opposite out to where I
Oh,
live.
yes.
And it's just, I mean, we don't need a big deal, it's just I made a request for that when Rabbit was my council. And I said, I don't want to start traffic. One accident's too many. And it's killed crossing the street.
That's a new
So get to the field house.
Right, so crosswalk to get to the field house at the end of Cogan is what you're.
Somewhere in between there, Sam, probably in Hope, yeah, a little closer than down, you know.
Let me make a note of that.
Thank you. If you want, I can put that in the email.
No, I'll write it down right now, and when, we'll be having our infrastructure meeting next week, and I can bring it up then.
Okay.
Okay, you're welcome. Yes, yes. See, so when we voted on the project itself, that was approval of the project, and then the design goes to committee, and then we did all this work, and so that's why Councilor Moore made the statement that we've made our recommendation. We're ready to move forward.
Like I said last week, I'm very passionate.
Oh, not at all. I was a union VP for 4 years.
Excellent. You know, like I said, you know, I'm sorry I went this way, but I'm just trying to get my family out. I'm very ill since I was tired from customers. I know it's frustrating. I hear them talking about it. And I actually got taught coverage budget, and it's so difficult. I have to spend money so way. And if you don't, it's a penalty, it's a follow-up. It's my money. We built the port in Champlain. It was my money. You know, at one point, GSA tells me had over 15,000 spots for parking. They took all the time. I'm just saying about parking. I got to fix stuff. I know we didn't know where to go. You know, so I appreciate what you do. I want you to know that.
Oh, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. Yes, it is. Thank you.
We got to go all the way down.
It's a big dam, maybe maybe more than that.
Last time was, you can walk through as a team, and you know how you could see in front of those airports? They had walked through, you walk around, I couldn't go. But they all went, and they take pictures with it. I just did not.
I like those documents because they've been building this over there.
You want to make a public
Hi, Joan.
So we're not on the agenda today.
No, so what I was explaining to Mr. O'Keefe is when we cast our vote to go ahead and finance the project, that was the approval of the project. So within the infrastructure committee, we worked out the design.
I just have one thing to say about 5A, and it's a really good, this is a really good night to say it. Because the snowplow has been by Cogan. And if we have 1 foot, when the snowplow goes by, where's all that really heavy stuff going? right onto the sidewalk. So it's not that I'm in favor of moving the sidewalk up closer to the houses, I'm not in favor of the sidewalk. And but the thing about it is I hear Councilor Kelly say, oh, I'm so happy with the budget. The street, don't take the state money to go ahead and do all the bells and whistles, because mostly what you heard from people on Hogan Avenue is, all we want is we want to repay the period, and none of the fancy stuff. So, since there's probably going to be a discussion on the state, okay, but I just want you to know, congratulations for reaching out to people. There's some people who missed, there's some people who didn't get back to, and I just think that the council's made up its mind, but they should before they spent the money to get the studies and find out that everything was, every 1, 2, and 3 that came in were totally objectionable to everybody who lives there. So keep that nut, the squirrel, little nut right there. Go talk to people before you decide. I did. My visit down Colgan Avenue was the outreach on my behalf. So I did do the outreach. But what, did you do it again after you came to the meeting, other than contacting us to try to get? I've got a full-time job and a kid I have at home. I did all of the outreach that I could. And when people emailed me, I emailed them back. And if they called me, I called them back. I left my business cards. We made sure there was press release in the it's been covered, I think, at least 3 separate occasions. That's all I was capable of doing. I did everything that I could. Bodily, physically, email, phone calls. I spent a lot of time on it. Comments that have been made by residents. Well, the project redesign is based on a comment from people in this and the project reports. I'm thoroughly in favor of it, but I think if you had option 6A instead of 5A, which is use the city money, don't take any state dollars, simply repave that one section, area, park. Probably, my guess is that would have happened, yes. Well, maybe it would have, but if we didn't put the sidewalks in, okay, let's say that we. If you didn't put the sidewalks in, you don't get sidewalks. No, I know that, fine, thank you. Then we would have had to put stripes on the road to allow for pedestrian access. And if we did that, there was going to be no on-street parking, which seemed to be something that was a huge outcry and a huge hardship. Oh, it was. And so this is the reason for the current decision, that was like one of the components for the current decision, along with funding. Why did the stripes have to go in? Because the engineer who's going to be drafting the plan would not work with us if we didn't make a plan that was ADA compliant. He wouldn't put his name on it. I mean, these were all the decisions that went, this is all the information that went into the decision-making process. Okay, this is water over the dam, but Plattsburgh had an engineer, and we found it out. Let's try to take care of this in house as far as I'm concerned. Take a look at our own, what's in our own best interest and the best interest of the residents.
That's pretty impressive for them.
Anyhow, all right, I've spoken my piece, thank you for listening. It's time for a meeting, thanks. Thank you.
Everyone's better in their household, I hope. I saw your email and I was like,
You know
that's
how it is
terrible.
with kids.
Yeah.
Mom, I don't feel good.
And then boom.
And then it's Vesuvius.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
And
I saw your email at first.
What's this? I have to be wrong tonight.
She could have gone.
You totally.
Also the one, I'm sorry.
In our house a little bit.
Oh, I know.
But you did. You got the budget right.
All the rest.
Expecting something. I thought that's what was going to vote, but
Oh, Pat, I should
that's
tell
why
you that I also like the,
he thanked me.
I like the narrower lanes too, because it makes people go slower.
I drove down to Cove yesterday.
It needs
People
this
don't,
project.
people don't listen to
It
speed
needs
limits,
this
but they tend to listen.
It's so
Or they tend to
bad.
pay attention.
When I was a runner, that used to be part of my running.
So you narrow
It's
roads.
dangerous.
That one block in particular.
Yes. And
But
one,
it's such a pretty street.
You review them? Yep. Make sure there's no fuckery.
I wish we could do the whole street.
well, I think we're gonna see at some point that the rest of it will have to get
These are all purchase orders.
We really do. And the problem is people fly through because it's that Prospect and Hogan are the only streets that connect Peru Green in one long shot.
Thank goodness for stop signs, otherwise it'd be a speedway.
It is anyway. My work was terrible for that. People go through stop signs all the time
Tesla?
and don't look and drive fast
Is it fast enough to do that?
because there's mostly residential traffic. And it's not like Cornelia Street, you know what I mean, where you're worried about, oh, let me stop it, please don't.
I could pay $2,000 to have
Yeah.
my car.
Drivers during rush hour.
I needed to go faster.
Closer to the goal.
Yeah.
When you have the amount of speeding tickets out there, I blame the chief. Not really. Going around here.
Seconds.
I think so. I've been led to believe that's the case.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I've been let down before though.
This is why I lit a fire under it.
That's good.
Just a second.
Yes.
This one is, the committee meeting is really where the action happened, I guess.
I'd like to begin tonight's common council meeting with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed,
Present.
Councilor Barbell, Councilor Kelly,
Here.
Councilor Gibbs,
Here.
Councilor Dominicus,
Here.
Councilor McFarland.
Here.
Councilor Moore.
Here.
As you see, it's snowing outside and it's going to continue snowing, I think, until around dinner time tomorrow. I certainly appreciate the work of DPW. They'll be busy all weekend, first of all, clearing the streets and then clearing the snow that they clear off the streets. And as always, their policy is at the end of that process is the end of the snow emergency, and they'll make that announcement for the end of the snow emergency, and then we all do our bit to clean the sidewalks, and they'll send their crews in to clean the sidewalks as well. So for a snowfall this size, it's a multi-day event to take care of that, and their people are working overtime. People that are even being reassigned to snow duty at this time of year, so they're gonna do their best to keep ahead. And we obviously appreciate all the patience of the public and the public doing their share in the sidewalk cleaning once the snow emergency ends. And you expect the snow emergency at this point will probably end roughly?
Snowfall's gonna run probably late Friday to Saturday morning, and probably call the end of the snow event sometime early Monday before noon. We will, the biggest problem is our resources and our personnel. We have to pace ourselves, during a sustained snowstorm like this. We're not really gaining out there, we're sort of maintaining, keep the roads open, keep the sides open. We do, we had guys out shoveling sidewalks, in downtown corridor, trying to keep, things opened up and passable for people. But there will be a period of time
course, the public needs to know that it will be necessary to remove vehicles at times too, so please be aware of that. Thank you, that's all I have.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on January 30th, 2020 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending February 5th, 2020, in the amount of $60,725.73 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Moore, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. You already completed your reports during the working session. Are there any additional reports you'd like to make at this time? Hearing none, resolve the reports as listed are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Councilor Gibbs and second by Councilor Giannikis. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. No recommendations from boards at this time. Please continue.
Resolved that the bills audited by the Common Council for the week ending February 7th, 2020, in the amount of $515,895.70 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This is an opportunity for the public to please come and address the council on any issues on the agenda itself.
Colleagues, you, Pat?
Seeing none, please continue.
Beth, I'd like to waive a reading on items number 7A through 7, E. A through E, waive a reading and move to resolution on all of those items.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Gibbs. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion on the items themselves, and you did have discussion during the earlier committee meetings.
Yeah, I asked that all these be combined because we discussed them all in the committee.
Yep. Works.
I just had one question, John. How many new presses are we getting?
2.
Seeing no further discussion, roll call please.
Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilor Gibbs?
Yes.
Councilor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Councilor McFarland?
Yes.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves that the mayor be authorized to sign change order number 3 to the asbestos abatement and demolition of Plattsburgh Municipal Department buildings. Contract with Orange View Trucking and Excavating in the amount of $9,240.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion? I think they're on the last building now, Mr. Miller?
For MLD, yes, there's 1.5 buildings left. They found asbestos in one of the additions to the building in the center. So the council should see one additional change order in addition to what is on this week's agenda, but I believe that will be it for the project.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilor Gibbs?
Yes.
Councilor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Councilor McFarland?
Yes.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves that the mayor is authorized to sign an agreement with American Bass Anglers, Inc. and the Adirondack Coast Visitors Bureau to host a Bass Pro Shop Open Series fishing tournament September 26th through 27th, 2020.
Moved by Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor Kelly. Discussion? Roll call?
Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilor Gibbs?
Yes.
Councilor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Councilor McFarland?
No.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves that the mayor is authorized to sign an agreement with Reynolds Boats Northern Bass Tournaments and Adirondack Coast Visitors Bureau to host a bass tournament on July 25th, 2020.
Moved by Counselor Kelly, second by Counselor Gibbs. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
No.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves the mayor to enter into an agreement with Saranac Power Partners for the installation of 2 stop signs to be placed within the city right-of-way of Weed Street. The terms and conditions for the proposal are set forth in the attached agreement.
Moved by Counselor McFarland, second by Counselor Gibbs. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves a.
Beth, I'll waive a reading and move to resolution on this item.
Moved by Counselor McFarland, second by Counselor DeDominicis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion of the item itself? Roll call?
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yeah.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
No travel requests at this time. Are there any resolutions for initial consideration? Any new business or additional council reports?
Well, I do have something I wanted to bring up. So, one of the gentlemen that showed up this evening, and also I'll bring this up now, and hopefully we can talk about it in infrastructure and, oh, that's next week, right, infrastructure? Okay. He brought up, and he is right, the vehicle traffic on Ruger Street is ridiculous. Cars go so fast. And wanted to know if it would be possible to put crosswalks at the end of Cogan Avenue to get over to the field house. So I thought I'd just bring that up, and hopefully we can talk about something about that next week. Okay, that would be great, thanks.
And let's include our planner in that
Oh,
discussion
okay,
as well.
okay.
She'll be working on the traffic orders that decide on that. She'll do the research.
Okay.
And Chief Ritter's already scoping out portable radar devices that he can leave planted on the side of the street to track traffic calming and monitoring. You want to update us quickly on that? I think you looked at a couple of really good technologies.
So, one of the, if we were going to spend money on something like this being an investment, I would want, the thing that I want is it to be able to record data so we can analyze the data. There are different models that can be used. Some are just strictly radar with no computerized functions, but the ones that we're looking at, trying to vet, are the ones that have the ability to perform analysis after the fact. So it would be portable, you can go to different locations in the city, based on needs.
Where would that, what does that look like? Is it like a camera, or what is it?
It's a small trailer.
Okay.
That has a quasi-LED display that displays the speed based on the radar emittance from the car.
Oh, okay.
But it's not for giving people tickets, it's just for like cognitive,
It's
getting
for
people to slow down.
alerting the motorist that may be in excess of the speed limit, while also recording the data, so during a given period of time, 500 cars travel through, what was the median speed, what was the high speed, what was the low speed, kind of gain the perspective of, do we have a rampant problem of speeding, or is it like 1%? You know, those kind of things that we don't know because we can't put an officer there and get that kind of data.
Okay. Will you have some kind of update about that for us when we have our public safety meeting at the end of the month?
It probably won't be much different than the update that I just gave you. We're still looking into them.
Okay. Okay.
I think I also remember reading a speak out recently where there's the claim that we've been putting a lot of cameras in our streets in the city of Plattsburgh, and I don't believe there's been any new cameras put in a number of years. Have there for street monitoring?
Not from the police department.
No.
I think they're light sensors that MLB's putting on the lights. So
Oh,
instead
for
of
the
using
new
traffic
LED
lights,
lights.
they're switching to overheads, and they look like cameras, so people are thinking that we're putting traffic cameras up, and they're not. They're basically traffic sensors, so that when a car pulls up to the traffic light, instead of cutting into the pavement and putting new loops in, they have new systems where they can actually mount into the traffic light, but they look like cameras.
Okay.
Slows people down, stops them.
They're opticals, and again, they're not applicable to all situations. Some you still have to have the old style traffic rules.
So Big Brother is not watching Plattsburgh.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other new business or council reports? This is now an opportunity for the public to please come and address the council again on any issue of mutual concern.
I'll move to adjourn.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Gibbs. Roll call.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Leonidas?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yeah.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Thank you, folks.
Yay.
Got some things for me to sign there still?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
So are we recording? How do we know when we're not? Is it a light show?
I think nobody shut it off.
Thanks, have a good trip. Make sure you got some protocol to stay in touch with that in case anything comes up. Okay, thanks.